Hello, my name is Sydney. Welcome to my astrology YouTube channel. So this month of May is a very big month because on May 24th, Saturn's gonna move into Aries for the first time in like over 30 years. So this is very exciting. So for this video, I want to talk about Aries Saturn transiting through all of the houses. So make sure you know your birth chart, make sure you know where your Aries ruled house is, and for those of you who abide by the Plastis housing system like me, just make sure you know exactly where Aries is going to be transiting, because for some of us, it's still going to be moving through our Pisces ruled house, depending on the degree. Okay, before I get into it, like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. I really appreciate it so much. I have my website in the description if you would like to book a reading with me. I also have an email list going, so if you sign up for that, you will receive exclusive promotions, discounts, and astrological insights. Okay, let's get into it. And there will be timestamps, by the way. So I want to start with first house. First house is like core self, essentially. It is motivations, it's decision-making skills. It has a lot to do with physical prowess. So if you have this upcoming Saturn Aries transiting through your first house, this is kind of what you can expect. So Aries Saturn is going to bring a lot of new beginnings. So this can denote new beginnings when it comes to your physical body. This is going to be an amazing transit to set new health goals and lifestyle goals in general. This might also kickstart an increased interest, or not interest, but maybe more investment in your health. So if you haven't been to the doctor in a while, this might present you kind of the inspiration to do so. I know a lot of people have medical anxiety, so this might give you that extra oomph that you need to finally go get done whatever it is you need to get done relating to your health. This is a really good time also to set certain weight loss goals, or just to really hone in on your body and increase your energy, increase your strength. That's a really big one here. So you might even feel inspired to join, a sports related club or start running, taking up a new athletic hobby essentially. Now, another thing that can happen when Saturn is moving through the first house, especially in an impulsive sign like Aries, it can force you to confront how you make decisions in life, and also what your motivations are, what incentivizes you. So this could lead to a shift in priorities as well. And when it comes to decision making, it's really important that when this transit is occurring, and keep in mind this transit's going to last like 2.5 years from the time Saturn enters Aries at the end of May, it's really important that you think through all decisions. There is an impulsive and rash nature to Aries Saturn. So basically, to Aries energy in general, and then Aries Saturn is kind of forcing you to slow down. It's forcing you to really think through your decisions, because if you make a decision too quickly, it can get really messy. You know what I mean? A decision made very quickly that the material circumstances of that decision can kind of start and end very quickly. Does that make sense? Like, it can kind of blow up in your face in some cases. So you just want to be really mindful with your decision-making skills. This isn't anything to be worried about. It's just, when it comes to really big life decisions, like even getting married, really make sure you're thinking it through. Make sure that you're not rushing, and this isn't built off of some impulse or whim, essentially. Now, a really good thing about Saturn Aries transiting through the first house is it can inspire some type of initiation when it comes to a new project of yours. So this is a really good time to start a business. This is a really good time to branch out, do your own thing, carve your own path in life. Now, I will say Saturn and Aries can bring some trial and error. So don't be shocked if when you first embark on a journey, maybe everything's not exactly going to go according to plan right away, but keep persisting, keep persevering. A beautiful thing about Aries energy is just the sheer strength that they have to overcome certain challenges and obstacles. If anything, Aries, potentially more so than any other sign, recognizes that mistakes are just a part of the larger game to kind of getting what you want in life. So you might have to face some trial and errors during this transit period, but it's all for the best. There's still kind of this overarching positive energy here. As long as you're being responsible, you're taking accountability, and you're thinking through your decisions, this can be a very rewarding transit for all the people that have Aries rising, or Aries Saturn's just going to be moving through your first house, whatever the case may be. Now we're going to talk about Aries Saturn moving through the second house. The second house rules over money, finances, material goods, material belongings, your possessions, your values, sense of self-worth, priorities, all that good stuff. So when Aries Saturn is moving through the second, remember Aries Saturn is going to bring new beginnings. So this could note a new source of income. You know, this could know a new job, a new professional opportunity, a new financial opportunity, whatever. So gaining a new source of income can definitely occur here. Now, keep in mind, Aries Saturn in some cases can require a leap of faith. So this could note maybe quitting your job and, you know, entering the job hunt. It might just be that in order to get the new opportunity, you might have to let go of, leave something in the past, which, you know, the sign that precedes Aries is, of course, Pisces. So Pisces is all about endings. So yeah, you might have to kind of cut the crust off the sandwich in order to really enjoy it. So this could note leaving an old job, an old financial opportunity behind and embracing a new one. Now, another really interesting thing that can happen with this transit is establishing new priorities, which can kind of tie into perhaps a new lifestyle, which could also tie into, again, a new professional opportunity. So it might be that this new source of income requires you to kind of reconstruct your life in a way, and your priorities can change just in general. It might be that you've entered a new era in your life where things that used to matter to you are no longer really relevant. So this could note new goals, like new goals that might have kind of traditional components to it. Like maybe during this transit, you're feeling more inspired to have a child, or you're feeling more inspired to get married, or you're feeling more inspired to take your career up a notch. You're just ready for advancement and development. You're ready to progress to that next level. Another thing that can happen here too is boundaries. So Aries Saturn can kind of help you. You know, the second house, it is a very kind of stubborn house, like the energy, it's very kind of fixed. So having Saturn moving through the second can help you establish new boundaries, and this can tie into new priorities, new lifestyle choices. So it might be that in reconstructing your life, you are perhaps reflecting on how much time and energy that you give to others. And this can kind of cause you to, you know, pull back a little bit and really focus on yourself. Now we're going to talk about Aries Saturn moving through the third house. So the third house represents communication, cognition. It's how you process and relay information. It's your local environment, like your neighborhood, you know, everything within like a 10-mile radius. It's your connections on a local scale. It's your peer relationships, cousins, siblings, again, neighbors. So this house is a little bit all over the place. So I heard some people call it the junk drawer house, which is really funny. That's very applicable. So Aries Saturn moving through the third house, it's really going to emphasize your communication with others. Aries being an impulsive sign, Saturn being a sign or a planet that has a lot to do with karma, you want to be very, very mindful about what you say during this transit. Not just what you say, but what you agree to and what you commit to. Your words carry a lot of power during this time. And for some of you, this could note finding power in your voice, finding power in your communication. Maybe in the past you've been a people pleaser. Maybe in the past you have, you know, sometimes, believe it or not, Aries third house, there is that aggressive nature to it, but sometimes there is a people-pleasing nature depending on what else is going on. It can take time for people with Aries third to really find their voice. So this might be what happens with you. You know, this might be about a journey of reclaiming your voice, reclaiming the things that you believe in, the things that you say, the things that you really wish to communicate to the world around you. But in general, your communication becomes of theme. So you want to be very mindful, because it could have like foot and mouth syndrome that you have to tweak and tune. And again, you really want to be mindful also with like avoiding rushing, which ties back to like avoiding foot and mouth syndrome, but also avoiding rushing even in the car. The third house has a lot to do with automobiles and short distance travel. This isn't meant to scare you. It's just meant to help you be more mindful. Like, make sure all of your technology you're protecting it, you're backing up your files, you're keeping up with car maintenance, things like that. You just want to be mindful when it comes to local travel, and you want to avoid speeding in all areas of life. But like in the car, when it comes to communication, another thing that can happen here, because the third house rules over cognition, this could lead to extra focus on your mental health. It might be that you have some mental health concerns that have been brewing under the surface for some time, and maybe it gets to a point where it's like, okay, you can't ignore it anymore. You can't deny it. You can't refute it. You really have to take care of it. So especially when it comes to like attention-based issues, like your attention span, or maybe like executive functioning, but you know, finding ways to be more productive, finding ways to tend to any mental health ailments that are preventing you from making the most of your life and energy. This can definitely become a theme here. You might also have an increased interest in like brain exercises. Like you might take up new hobbies that really stimulate your mind. This can also lead to new friendships, new peer relationships, finding some type of role of, I guess you could say, leadership in some cases in your community. So you can take on a little bit more power, which might be kind of what goes back to like finding power in your voice. Okay, now we're going to talk about Aries Saturn transiting the 4th house, which rules over family, family relationships, family dynamic, basically everything pertaining to home and of course emotional wellness as well. So Aries Saturn moving through the fourth, this can bring up some family conflict. Aries is a very aggressive sign. Aries Saturn, you know, this can kind of bring some looming conflict to the surface that is, you can't ignore it anymore. So you might have some family conflict you have to tend to, but the good news is this can show family relationships that you can repair, or at the very least maybe new boundaries that you're able to set, or finding some type of resolve on an emotional internal level. So maybe it's not as simple as forgiving someone in your family or like having a face-to-face kind of, you know, patching things up that way, but maybe it's more of an internal thing where you reach a point of clarity, you reach a point of closure, and you kind of have your own unique way of practicing forgiveness. It doesn't mean you have to forget. It doesn't mean you have to forgive in like a traditional sense. Like again, you don't necessarily have to like show up in this person's life if you don't want to and be like, I forgive you. But you know, finding that forgiveness on an internal level is really important here, and this can definitely happen. Now, because Aries Saturn is new beginnings, this can have new beginnings in your family life. So gaining a new family member, maybe through, you know, pregnancy and having a child. This could know getting, for some of you, like engaged, you know, getting married, gaining a sister-in-law, brother-in-law, like having new people come into the family. For some of you, this could even know adopting a pet, like bringing on a new pet into the family. Depending on what other transits are going on for you, this could even know moving, relocating, so an actual new house. And again, you know, Aries being such an aggressive sign and being such a physical sign, this could even note redesigning your home. So maybe you don't move, but you know, your kitchen, you decide to redo your kitchen or something. So you can be spending a little more time and energy on your home life, whether it's repairing relationships, repairing certain things in the home that are maybe outdated that need to be tended to. Okay, now we're going to talk about Aries Saturn transiting the 5th house. The 5th house is all about romance, creativity, hobbies, entertainment, self-expression. So this is a really fun one. It can be a little chaotic at times, but ultimately I think the energy is very favorable. So this can definitely note new love, new dating excursions. So, you know, the 5th house, it's more of the fun components of dating. It's the flirtation, it's, you know, the romanticism. So for some, this could note a lot of flings, right? A new fling. This isn't to say you can't find yourself in a committed relationship, but the emphasis really lies on fun, flirty, and also hot and heavy attraction. So this could note new, you know, intimate escapades as well. Another thing that can happen here is if you're already in a relationship, this can like sparks. So, you know, reigniting that spark, finding, or not finding, but, you know, reclaiming and rediscovering all the things that made you fall in love in the first place. Now, for some of you, Saturn is, you know, it's very karmic. So Aries energy can sometimes want what it can't have, and it can be a game player. It can be very competitive. So for some of you, if you have been a little naughty when it comes to your dating life, this can lead to a little bit of like what goes around comes around. So basically what I mean is, in the past, if you have gone after unavailable people, or if you have not been the most loyal or faithful to your partners, this can lead to, you know, kind of getting maybe what you have put out into the world. So depending on how you've handled your dating life in the past, past, think about it that way. Think of like, for some of you, this can be a really rewarding time where you're rewarded for your good behavior. For some of you who've been a little bad, a little naughty, this can be kind of a challenging time where maybe you get a dose of your own medicine, or maybe you are challenged with, having to resist certain temptations and patterns that you might have fallen, prey to in the past. Another thing that can happen here is like new hobbies, new sources of joy and entertainment. This could even note like a new aesthetic, new style, kind of like a personal rebrand, a lot of maturity, a lot of growth. So even in finding new sources of joy, there can still be this sense of maturity. It might even be that the things that you find enjoyable are things that directly correlate with your newfound maturity. So things you used to find fun, like maybe, drinking and partying, which, don't get me wrong, drinking and partying, very fun. I don't think there's ever really an age where it's like, if you're an adult, you have the right to have fun in those ways too. But for some people that can grow kind of old. So it might be one of those things where it's like you're at a point in time where you're ready for something a little more serious. So the things that you used to consider fun might not really be fun to you anymore. So this could note kind of rediscovering what it is that you find enjoyable, which for some, taking up new hobbies, like I said, new sources of entertainment. For some of you, because Aries is again very physical, you might even take up a new sports related hobby, or a new kind of a hobby that really focuses on like physical strength, like rock climbing, hiking, bike riding, whatever the case may be. Okay, now we're going to talk about Saturn, Aries, transiting through the 6th house. The 6th house is all about health, routine, lifestyle, and responsibility. So this is kind of a house. It's a little bit annoying, but it's mandatory and necessary. And the 6th house, for, as annoying as it might be, it really sets the foundation for all other things. Like if your 6th house is out of whack, your whole life can be like out of whack essentially. So even though it's a frustrating house at times, it is a house that is very defining to the rest of your chart. It's one of those where it's like, you can't avoid that house. So Aries Saturn moving through the 6th, in a favorable case, this could note a new professional opportunity, new responsibilities, which I know at first, thought that might be like, new responsibilities. But sometimes new responsibilities they bring with it their own rewards. They bring with it like esteem, acclaim, and sometimes new challenges can be really fun and really exciting. So if your life has been stagnant, Aries Saturn moving through your 6th can shake things up. And in bringing new responsibilities, this again can tie into like a new job opportunity, some type of professional advancement. So the implications of new responsibilities can have, there's something fun to be had there. Now, of course, for some, this can be new responsibilities that might not be the most fun, but odds are it is essential to the progress and development of your life. Now, because 6th house is so much about health, this is a little similar to the 1st house in the sense that this could note new health goals. If you've been delaying or putting off certain things related to your health, like getting a checkup, whatever, the time is kind of now. You know what I mean? You might feel that extra push to like, okay, I actually need to take this seriously. So just kind of do what you can, where you can. I know it's really complicated and some of this is easier said than done. But just, again, take care of yourself where it is possible for you and where it's accessible. Now, again, that's not meant to like worry you or anything. This doesn't necessarily mean that some health crisis is going to pop up for you, but it does mean that you might be feeling in, growing up and maturing, you might start taking that stuff a little more seriously. And this can lead to lifestyle changes too. Like this could know new goals when it comes to taking care of yourself, even on your own accord, dietary changes, increased exercise maybe. Now for some of you, this could note dialing it back a little bit. It's not uncommon for people with an Aries influence 6th house to already be very like honed in on things like diet and exercise. And it might be that you have been so focused on it that you're like you are running yourself into the ground. So it might be for some of you that Aries Saturn moving through the 6th kind of helps you gain moderation, helps you, gain a little more balance when it comes to work and play. Because trust me, like I said, having Aries 6th house could, for some, make them like workaholics basically. So regardless, Aries Saturn moving through the 6th can help you find moderation in those things, help you find balance. There is a fast-paced energy here though, so new opportunities are very possible when it comes to work and again, responsibility. Okay, now we're going to talk about Aries Saturn moving through the seventh house. The seventh house rules over relationships and certain forms of commitment. So this is a really important transit. If you have Aries Saturn moving through the seventh, this is really going to impact, of course, your relationships. And this could note a brand new relationship, like a new romantic relationship. Now, the seventh house is similar to the fifth in terms that, or in the sense that there is that romanticism, but the seventh house is a little more serious because it also has a lot to do with commitment. So if Aries Saturn's moving through your seventh, this could note a new relationship that actually like sticks. There might be some longevity to it. This transit help you become more mindful and aware of your patterns in your relationships. So this could note becoming more aware of the fact that maybe you kind of want what you can't have. Maybe you're more prone to unavailable relationships. So this can kind of help you put a stop to that. It can just help you be more discerning, I guess I should say. This can also, it's really important that you don't rush during this transit, okay? Aries Saturn can bring forth consequences when impatience and impulsivity take over. So again, you want to make sure you're discerning. Now, for some people, Aries influence in the seventh house, if you have like an Aries ruled seventh house, the tricky thing about this energy is that it can create excess independence. It can make it very hard to rely on others or accept help. So this transit can kind of force you in a position of, for some, it can kind of emphasize that, severe independent streak that a lot of people with Aries seventh house have. So what this basically means is you might undergo a process where you kind of lose some people in your life. I don't want this to scare you, and this is not going to be everybody. It's also really going to depend on what other transits you have going on in your chart and like transit aspects. But for some of you, this could kind of think of it as like a complete overhaul of the relationships in your life. Friendships, colleagues, and of course, romance, okay? It can kind of force that independent nature to come out and for you to like confront it and face it and recognize, it's good to be independent and it's good to be strong, but also there's nothing wrong with wanting company. There's nothing wrong with wanting, social connection. So it can kind of force you into that space of like solitude almost. Now, for some of you, this can allow for new relationships to take hold. And it might be a process of like maybe at first you kind of lose some relationships and then towards the end of the transit you gain some. Now, if you're already in a romantic relationship during this time and, before the transit starts, this can note some type of advancement in the relationship. So getting engaged, getting married, finding out you are pregnant, like having a child together, moving in together, some type of progress. Now, I will say on that note, if progress is not had, it can kind of feel like, okay, what are we doing here? So for some of you, you might feel compelled to maybe put out like an ultimatum on your relationship. This is going to be totally up to you. I can neither support or not support this. Every relationship is different, but I will say, you don't want to rush, you don't want to be impatient, but you also don't want to like hang your life up for somebody else if they're taking too long. Your priorities and your goals are really important here. So with Aries 7th house, if you feel like your relationship is not progressing in the direction you want it to, yeah, this could lead to a breakup for sure. Aries, again, it's very aggressive. It's a little bit combative. So, if you're not where you want to be in that relationship, yes, you can leave. All right, now we're going to talk about Aries Saturn moving through the 8th house. The 8th house is one of those houses, you know what I mean? It makes people nervous. It's a really great house. It does rule over transformations, which is of course essential to life and character development and growth. The 8th house also rules over like karmic debts. So these are things that you're kind of born into the world, like owing to others, owing to yourself. This house can also bring forth a lot of challenges, certain traumas, things like that. So with Aries Saturn moving through the 8th, it kind of goes without saying, but I will say it, you really want to be cautious. Again, the 8th house is very transformative. So by default, you're going to undergo a lot of transformations and new beginnings, but the tricky thing is Aries energy is very impulsive. Saturn can be kind of punishing at times. It's rewarding and it's punishing, you know what I mean? So that said, you want to try to avoid too much impulsivity and impatience, and you want to always practice safety precautions. So, for example, when you're in a car, of course you wear your seatbelt, right? When you are doing some type of if you're going out skateboarding or whatever, just an example, you wear your knee pads. You get what I'm saying? You wear helmets where you need to wear helmets. If you're going on a motorcycle, like, you need safety precautions, because Aries, Saturn moving through the 8th, it brings a lot of transformations. You want a lot of these transformations to happen on your own terms. You don't want them to come as surprises. You know what I mean? You don't want them to come from something that maybe is very unfavorable. Okay, does that make sense? This isn't meant to scare you. It's just meant to prepare you so that you can take preventative measures and be super cautious. Now, this can also bring physical changes very similar to the 1st and the 6th house. So this could know undergoing lifestyle changes, undergoing like maybe dietary changes. Maybe you're changing up your exercise habits. Maybe you're exercising for the first time. So no judgment, no shame. Absolutely. You know, everyone goes at their own pace, and it's never a bad time to start a new habit, especially if it's a good habit. So this can definitely kind of inspire you to make major life changes. So if you are someone who has been living life a certain way and you don't like the life you've been living, this can give you that push and that shove to reclaim your authority, reclaim your autonomy, reclaim your faith, and take necessary steps to changing all the things about your life that you can change that you do not like. So in a way, this transit can bring newfound confidence in yourself. So you, again, like debts, you owe it to yourself to live the life you want to live, because, you know, unless you believe in reincarnation, this is our one life and it's very precious. So this can definitely help you, you know, take into account some really poignant matters, or, you know, poignant beliefs and things like that. So another really good thing is it can allow for a lot of introspection and reflection. So there's a really strong focus on you, the things you want, your desires. This transit period can also help you confront certain fears. And this doesn't necessarily mean that you have to like physically, materially face them. Like if you're afraid of sharks, no, this does not mean you're gonna get like bitten by a shark. You get what I'm saying? It's not necessarily like that, but it can allow for some type of point, you know, a point of enlightenment or a feeling of like, aha, you know what I mean? Like it all makes sense now. And it can also help you, like maybe in facing your fears, you do swim with a shark or something and you don't get bitten. So maybe that's another way it happens, is like you come face to face with your fear and everything's okay. You know what I'm saying? So this is a really, really transformative transit period. I don't want you to be afraid of it. I want you to embrace it, and I want you to take, of course, preventative measures, and I really want you to take matters into your own hands. Like you dictate, in this case, you kind of dictate your faith, you know? And we will say what comes around goes around here. Consequences are heightened. So your accountability is a little more intense. You do have a little more power during these next 2.5 years. So, you know, you want to use your power and influence wisely, and you want to make really good decisions, because what you put out can definitely come back. All right, let's talk about Aries Saturn moving through the 9th house. This is a very, very big one. So the 9th house has a lot to do with our beliefs, our education. It also has a lot to do with travel. This can, of course, you know, through, you know, that said, lead to exciting new travel excursions. So you might be traveling more during this time period. This could also note relocating, like actually straight up moving, especially moving kind of like far away from where you are originally, or, you know, where you are right now. So that's really exciting. This can also note a new educational pursuit. If you are someone who's been thinking of going to school, this is a time to do so. If you are someone who's thinking of going back to school, this is a time to do so. If you are looking into a self-taught endeavor, like maybe you really want to take up painting, but you don't, you know, either you can't afford or you don't want to go to like art school, whatever, this could note some type of self-led, self-inspired educational journey. Aries is very self-concerned. So, you know, embarking on an endeavor that you yourself are kind of leading yourself down, perfect time to do so. And on that note, this could note an entrepreneurial endeavor. This could note starting your own business. Like this can give you the inspiration to carve your own path and walk your own journey, having faith in yourself. I will say this time period can also bring new beliefs, and in some cases, an existential crisis that leads to new beliefs. So Aries being very self-concerned, there can be a lot of introspection that happens during this time period, because again, the 9th house has a lot to do with beliefs, right? So there's a lot stewing on a psychological level, and on a spiritual level. So this can note a spiritual rebirth in some cases. Like maybe you have kind of a dark night of the soul period, and you emerge on the other side with this newfound sense of faith. New opportunities can come to you as well during this transition transit period, so there can kind of be an abundance of options for some people. It might feel like you're looking out at the whole rest of the world and you don't really know which way to go. So there can kind of be, in some cases, an overwhelming feeling of anxiety because of all of the options and because of all of the decisions you have to make. And I do want to say too, and going back to how introspective it is, this period can be a little bit similar to the 7th house transit, in the sense that you might undergo like an overhaul of certain relationships in your life, and even certain lifestyle choices. Think of this period again, it's like a spiritual rebirth. It's new beginnings for you on like a core spiritual level. And so what can happen here is you can kind of do away with everything in your life that is not for your highest good, okay? And this can be said too, like for the 8th house as well. But for the 9th house especially, there's gonna be a lot of character development here, and you might have to let some things go in order to achieve that character development. All right, now we're gonna talk about Aries Saturn moving through the 10th house. Woo! 10th house represents your potential. It's kind of like the karmic peak of your life, success, ambition, achievement, very much associated with career and life purpose. That said, Aries Saturn moving through the 10th can bring new professional opportunities, of course. It can also bring professional advancement. So maybe you're in a career and you love it and you don't want to change it, but you get a promotion, you know what I mean? Or you move to a new department where there's more benefits, there's more money to be made. Maybe there's even more power. This could note stepping up into a leadership position as well. So this is a really exciting transit period. I will say, if you're currently in a professional environment that you do not like, yes, this could note leaving that job, this could note quitting, and this could note taking a leap of faith and banking on yourself. So literally investing in yourself, prioritizing yourself, your desires, and your interests. So for some, this could note starting your own business. This could note embarking on some type of entrepreneurial endeavor. This could note changing your career. So maybe you've been working as an accountant, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden you're kind of like, you know what, I don't want to do this. I actually want to be an author. So you start writing in your free time, you know, you start investing in some type of talent or skill that you hope to monetize one day, or you hope to like help others. You know, both is possible, of course, but this could note kind of, you know, reassessing your potential and reassessing your purpose in the world. So if you've been walking down a path and you're like, okay, this isn't doing anything for me, this isn't fulfilling me on like a deep spiritual, emotional level, then yeah, you can definitely make a pivot. This could require a really big leap of faith, which Aries is a master at, you know, making leaps of faith. So I don't want that to scare you. I want it to empower you. Another thing that can happen here is literally getting more power. This could be power through your work. It could be, depending on what other transits and aspects you have going on, power in your personal life, you know, especially if there's like moon in your 10th house, for example. You know, like Aries moon in the 10th, which Saturn will then of course cross over. So this can just bring more power where maybe you felt like you haven't had much power or authority or autonomy. For some of you, this could note getting a new boss. So maybe kind of a new source of power enters your life, you know, a new boss, a new mentor, someone that you can look up to and learn from. That's another way this energy can manifest. And because the 10th house just takes whatever's in it and kind of enhances it and really brings out its fullest potential, this can of course also lead to a health related journey and a health related triumph. So this is a really good time to set health goals. Of course, you know, you do want to do so in moderation. You don't want to get extreme with it, but this could note setting health goals that you go on to achieve, because Saturn moving through the 10th, power is on your side. Karma is on your side as well. So what that means is if in getting more power, you have to use it for good, or you might get a little bit in trouble. So just be mindful there. Now we're going to talk about Saturn moving through the 11th house. The 11th house is a really interesting house. It rules over community, larger community, you know what I mean? So think of it like this way. Instead of your neighborhood, local city, it is your state. Does that make sense? It's like it's the community at large, which also means it has a lot to do with global affairs like the environment, you know, animals, things like that, like not human, but life forces basically, that we are all impacted in the same way. Like, even though we are all different, we are under a very similar influence. So it's like the world and the earth at large. Keep in mind the ninth house also has a lot to do with worldly global matters, but again, the 11th house, there's that concept of community, togetherness, and unity. So whereas the ninth house focuses a lot on the differences, the 11th house focuses a lot on coming together despite the differences. There's a unification process happening. The 11th house also has a lot to do with platonic relationships like friendships, colleagues. The 11th house also has a lot to do with rebellion, going your own way, and wishes come true. There's definitely a magical element to the 11th house. So Aries Saturn moving through here off the bat could note new friendships, new colleagues, new sense of community. So, a new support system in some cases. This can also note, again, and going back to that kind of rebellious spirit, going your own way, embarking on your own path, your own journey. You might be walking down a path right now and you're like, okay, I hate this. So you do a complete pivot. This could note making decisions that shock the people around you. The 11th house has a lot to do with surprises and unexpected occurrences. So Aries Saturn moving through the 11th can bring a lot of curveballs, especially unpredictable things that you couldn't really foresee happening, because again, it's coming out of left field. So I hate to say this because I know you're wanting specifics and clarity, but this transit is kind of like a wild card. Think of it like that. What can happen is very much up to higher powers, essentially. Of course, there are specific themes, like I said, potential for making new friends, having new colleagues, getting a new support system, but there's also this kind of free fall energy where you just don't really know what's going to happen until it happens. So expect your life to likely kind of undergo a shift and a tilt. Things might get turned, what is the phrase, like turned on its side or something? There might be kind of an adjustment period where you do have to adapt to the changing circumstances. Now, that said, this could lead to miracles and statistical anomalies. So if you are, the only way that I can compare, the only thing I can really use as an example to explain what I mean by statistical anomaly is like, let's say you are on some type of like BC, protection, for intimacy, and then you get pregnant anyway. You know what I mean? Like, that's a way that I can explain it. Like, statistical anomaly, meaning that you defy the odds. So there can be a really crazy circumstance that happens in your life within these next 2.5 years that you come out, as an example of like, wait, okay, how did that happen? That wasn't in the plans. Fate takes over, essentially. Like, the divine timing of the universe takes over. So this is a very exciting transit period. It can be a little bit freaky at times even. Like, another thing I can compare it to is like having a rare opportunity that you stumble upon, being at the right place at the right time, meeting celebrities. Like, that's, you know what I mean? Like, there's this rarity to it. So this is actually a very cool transit, but yes, there can be kind of a bit of a fearful feeling here because there is this looming sense of like, I know my life is about to change, but I don't know how and I don't know when. All right, now the final house is the 12th house. So Aries Saturn transiting the 12th, which has a lot, the 12th house is really freaky because it rules over everything that is like unknown. It is literally, it's like your subconscious mind, it's your hidden desires, it's your hidden fears, it's spirituality. It also has a lot to do with religion. It's things that you cannot see with the eye, but you feel it. So it's also a very intuitive house, but it's foggy. It's like marshy. You know what I mean? There's like a thickness to it. There's a heaviness to it, which can kind of make it disorienting and very hard to see. So it also has a lot to do with mysteries, okay? Aries Saturn moving through the 12th can definitely bring clarity, which is a good thing. However, it can force you to become very aware and mindful of ways that you might have been self-sabotaging, ways that you might have been letting other people walk all over you, or ways that you have not been taking accountability for your life. I know this house isn't the most fun. Those examples aren't very fun, but it's really empowering and it's so important to the progress of your life. You might become aware of all the ways that you have been kind of responsible for putting yourself in positions that are not super favorable. So there's kind of this moment of like taking full accountability for the life that you live, not blaming certain things on other people. And in taking accountability, you gain so much power, you gain so much authority, and there's life just kind of opens up for you because of it. It's like you're freeing yourself, basically. You're freeing yourself from this cage that you might have been keeping yourself in due to certain fears, due to, we all to an extent fear accountability and responsibility, because it's really scary to admit that you are in control of your material life, to an extent, of course, to an extent. A lot of stuff is like happening to us, which I totally get. But we do still have some choices and some, sway and say. And it can be really scary to admit that maybe certain things that aren't really going according to plan are, in some cases, kind of your own doing. So this can lead to a major breakthrough, and in some cases, almost an identity crisis, where you're like, okay, wow, I might be kind of responsible for some of these things. But rather than like stewing in guilt or shame, it's a very liberating feeling, and you can gain newfound power to set boundaries with the people in your life, power to maybe leave certain things and people behind that are no longer working for you, the power to, make your own, set your own priorities and your own, just, you get what I'm trying to say. You can design your life how you want. So there's a lot of new beginnings that can happen for people that have Aries Saturn moving through the 12th. It can come following certain realizations about the role that you play in your life. But regardless, these new beginnings can definitely come. You will have to be, introspective and reflective in bringing these to life, but it's definitely possible. And once things pick up for you, they can really pick up. There can be a really intense fastness and quickness here. And so your life can kind of start to fly to a point where you might not be able to fully comprehend or catch up to what's happening for you. So your life can undergo, similar to like Aries Saturn moving through the 11th, your life can undergo a really big shift, like a 180. As a result of taking on responsibility and accountability, as a result of being able to see yourself clearly. Now, I will say this is a very karmically significant transit period as well. So if you have been misbehaving, whatever that might mean to you, yes, you can definitely face some consequences during this time. If you've been working hard, you can also get some happy consequences during this time, happy outcomes and rewards. There's also a very strong therapeutic, rehabilitative energy here for the body. So if there is something about your physical health or even your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health that is like really suffering, this can present opportunities to tend to those ailments. So for some, this could note, going to rehab following a lot of addiction. This could note physical therapy following maybe an accident you had a while ago. Just checking in with your body, checking in with your spirit. And this can be kind of what catapults you to taking on newfound accountability and responsibility for your life. Owning the totality of who you are, not letting others define life for you, not letting maybe certain unfavorable events that happened in the past define you or define where you're going. Okay, so that's all the houses and Aries Saturn moving through them. I hope this made sense. Feel free to let me know in the comments where this transit's going to be occurring to you. Remember, if you do abide by Placidus, for a lot of us, Aries, Saturn's not really going to be like necessarily changing houses right away. Like for example, my 7th house is Pisces, 21 degrees. My 8th house is Aries, 23 degrees. So, it's not going to be, Saturn's not going to be moving into my 8th for a little bit. So it's still moving through my 7th. So for some of us, Saturn's not necessarily moving houses, but it's still moving signs. And so this still very much applies. It's still really important, and it's still going to bring for a lot of us new beginnings and advancements. Okay, so yeah, I hope that made sense. Like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. And thank you so much to all the support. I greatly appreciate it. Again, my website is in the description, and don't forget to sign up for my email list.